Another state. I'm trying to eat down a whole nother plate. Seem like my homies was stuck in the hood. I just told them be safe in the state.
Haiti remains in the grips of crisis. Chaos and gang violence are escalating, and struggling to see another day has become a way of life. More than a year has passed since the president was assassinated, and the government remains in shambles.
Haiti is in crisis. Gangs have almost taken over Port-au-Prince, and sexual violence and kidnappings are on the rise.
We agree that between deepening food and fuel shortages, the growing cholera outbreak, and gangs blockading ports and terrorizing civilians, the situation is simply unsustainable. We appreciate Canada's leadership in creating the UN Basket Fund to strengthen citizen security and law enforcement, and in airlifting vital security-related equipment to the Haitian government last week, efforts in which the United States has been a proud partner. And we'll continue to work together to rally international support around helping the Haitian people find a way forward from the sanctions adopted unanimously last week by the Security Council against the leaders of gangs.
Welcome to the Black Miss Podcast. Welcome to the Black Miss Podcast. I'm your host, Too Black. As you already heard at the beginning, the news clippings from a Florida news station discussing Haiti and the situation that is currently happening in Haiti, or at least as they chose to describe it. So obviously today's myth is going to be about Haiti, and we're going to discuss Haiti and hopefully, give you a perspective that you're not getting, in most press, and it's whether it's mainstream media or even many of these independent media outlets as well. So the myth itself, the myth is Haiti needs more foreign military intervention. Originally, it was just going to say needs foreign military intervention as the myth. Doesn't need it at all. But there's been so much invasion and foreign intervention militarily throughout the history of Haiti. This is just another chapter of it. So felt like it was important to say more. Today we're going to be talking with Dr. Jemima Pierre. Today we're going to be talking with Dr. Jemima Pierre. Her and I are both members of the Black Alliance for Peace, so this is definitely going to be a fruitful and enriching conversation. She's an associate professor in the Department of African American Studies and Anthropology at the University of California, Los Angeles, otherwise known as UCLA. She's an editor and columnist for Black Agenda Report, and she is also the co-coordinator for the Haiti's America's team of the Black Alliance for Peace, like as I just said, BAP, an anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace organization of the Black radical movement. So today we're going to be getting into some of the deeper history, and this is a two-parter. So this first episode really just going to deal with the history of intervention and how that is impacting today. And in the second episode, we're going to really delve into more so the current situation that brought us here. Just to give people a little bit of backdrop as far as what the press is saying, so people have some sense of framework of what we're talking about. Haiti's embroiled in a lot of chaos right now, but the main thing that's being attributed to it is gang violence. Put that in air quotes. This is Reuters on the question of, it had like a fact sheet of like what's going on in Haiti, and it says what's causing the crisis. It says the trigger for the current crisis is a blockade of a key fuel terminal by armed gangs that began in September that has led to shortages of gasoline and diesel, halted most transport, in turn creating shortages of basic foods, including clean water. It says, who are the gangs leading the blockade? The blockade is being led by a coalition of gangs called the G9, which controls areas in and around the capital, Port-au-Prince. The group's leader, Jimmy Barbecue Chazer, is a former police officer who has been the target of sanctions by the U.S. Treasury Department for his role in the 2018 massacre. So many outlets are leading with this idea that somehow gangs are the main cause of what's going on in Haiti. And although they definitely are contributing, there's many other factors we'll get into, whether you're talking about the current president, Henry, who's completely unelected by the people themselves and has just been put in place by the core group. Whether we're talking about, Jovenel Moise, who was just assassinated not too long ago, and even his relationship to the elite in Haiti. So today's conversation, again, we're going to get into the deeper politics that even brings us to even have this conversation, or for this to even be a headline in the news. Haiti is, as I'm sure many of our listeners know, is often, at least in the world that we exist in, is often lifted up, rightfully so, for the Haitian Revolution. But revolutions have to be defended. So it's not just something that happens and then we just are like, oh, that's great. So, the situation in Haiti is being punished often for that revolution and for trying to defend it, being punished primarily by the West themselves. So we're going to get into that conversation. But before we do that, I do want to do one more thing. I want to shout out the patrons that we picked up in the last month. So let's give the names real quick. It is, who we got here? Your fave Mexican comrade. Okay. We got Will. We got Justine Roez. Then we have, may not get this name right, Comrade EJ. And so shout out to all of y'all for signing up. The Patreon has been going up pretty good here lately. This particular episode, if you are a patron or if you would like to become a patron, when we do these 2-part interviews that I usually record in one session, we'll just upload the whole interview as one. So if you want to hear the whole conversation before waiting for the second half to drop next week, you can listen in by just signing up to be a patron for at the very least $1 or more. So definitely keep that in mind. So anyway, I think I've covered everything. So without further ado, we're gonna get into the conversation with Dr. Pierre. I think this be a fruitful conversation. Again, we jump around a bit, but the primary focus of this first half is about a lot of the history that has led to this moment. Some of that within maybe even just the last 15 years, and then some of that going back to the revolution, some of that dealing with the U.S. occupation from 1915 to 34, different periods and epochs in time, but generally speaking, we're setting it up so you really can have an understanding of how Haiti is in the situation that it's in, which is very important to framing this conversation. Because if not, we just jump into it like, oh, why are these people so poor? Why are they going through this? And like, these are the kinds of myths we'd like to debunk. So let's get into it. I think just starting out, there's been conversation obviously about intervention or invasion into Haiti, and there's been different viewpoints in the press. Like I know the Washington Post said explicitly in the headline was yes, intervene in Haiti and push for democracy, which is an interesting contradiction. And then Bloomberg just the other day put out actually pushing back, saying sending troops to Haiti would make the situation worse. But then when you read through that piece, it's talking about like arming the police in Haiti and just pretty much turning it into a kind of a neo-colonial imperialist state, or just like a police state, but just not direct intervention. So I'm curious just to get your takes on that, as well as just like can you give us the current, like as of this recording, the current situation as you see it? Because what we're getting in the news is obviously about gangs and intervention and, fuel prices and such.
Right. And so the call for intervention really came with the visit from the Organization of American States leader to Haiti to visit the installed prime minister. And so I can, I'll get back to that in a minute in terms of like Haiti's government. Luis Almagro visited Haiti, and then immediately he tweeted that Haiti needs a foreign intervention to help it. And then the next day, the imposed prime minister wrote a formal request to the U.S. and the UN for military occupation, for armed military force to Haiti. Now, and then immediately after that, you had this concerted effort. And it seems like a concerted effort because all of a sudden you have the UN general, UN Secretary General, you call, and then you have the UN office in Haiti, Helen Lalim, the woman who runs it, make statements. And then all of a sudden you had like this groundswell of media and so on and so forth. What's interesting about that is just the timing of it, because around the same time that Luis Almagro and Ariel Henry, who's the imposed vice president of Haiti, made this call, there'd been about 4 weeks of protests, 4 or 5 weeks of nonstop protests by Haitian civil society. People are in the street by the thousands in every major city. In fact, we had ongoing protests up until a couple of weeks ago for 9 weeks straight. And the protests were for two major things. One of them is the government removed fuel subsidies from for Haitians. And to put this in perspective is, the US and the Western governments subsidize their farmers, they subsidize all kinds of businesses and so on and so forth. Haiti has no subsidies. And so the fuel subsidy is the only subsidies that's allowed for Haitian people. But removing the subsidies also meant that, the Haitian, for example, Haitian minimum wage is around $2, on average $2 a day, right? Gas prices before the subsidies were removed were about $3 or $4. Once the subsidies, $3 or $4 per gallon. Once the subsidies were removed, the gas prices went up to about $6 a gallon. So think about this: when people, the average person is making $2 a day, gas prices, and they need to get on motorcycles and public transportation to get to work. Gas prices, go up by 130%. It was, so people were just outraged by that. And they were outraged by the fact that this is an illegitimate government making these decisions for Haiti. And so you have the protests ongoing. This so-called prime minister then announces that these are gangs, right? And these are gangs that are out in the streets. They're not real protests. And then the mainstream press, the Western press, picks up on this discourse around gangs, right? And completely dismisses the larger, broader protests about cost of living and so on and so forth. But the other set of protests that were against this government, right? And to understand the protests, we have to actually go back to understanding that Haiti has been under occupation since 2004. And the reason I say that, and it's not hyperbole, I'm not just exaggerating in anything. In 2004, well, before that, in 2003, if your audience members can look up the term Ottawa Initiative. In 2003, Canada, US, France, the liberal governments of Canada, US, Canada in particular, Jean Chrétien, met in Ottawa. And this was supposed to be a secret meeting on what to do about Haiti. And what part of it was because they had this populist government under Jean-Bertrand Aristide, which was the popularly elected president of Haiti, who had the CIA had a coup d'etat against back in 1990. Right. And so he had been reelected
under Bill Clinton, right?
Right. Yeah. And then there was another coup d'etat in 2000. So in 2003 they meet, late 2003, U.S., France, and Canada meet and hatch out this plan, which was a secret meeting, but was reported by Canadian newspapers. So if you look up Ottawa Initiative, you'll see that. And the plan was to basically remove Haiti's government and replace it and turn it into this kind of like they didn't say neo-colonial, but like this government that needed support, a government that's more amenable to economic and political policies of the West. And so sure enough, by February 29th, US funded and trained a ragtag paramilitary troops who were funded both in Ecuador and in the Dominican Republic, funded by the CIA, which has been revealed. The US Marines landed in the house of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who was the president of Haiti. They drove him to the airport, put him on a plane. He was under armed guard, him and his family, put him on a plane and flew him to the Central African Republic. And this is crazy because I actually remember this because I woke up listening to Democracy Now! When he finally got access to a phone call. He's calling and he's like, he called Randall Robinson. Randall Robinson called Amy Goodman to say Aristide's been kidnapped. So no one knew what was going on, right? So I remember listening to this live You know, he's kidnapped. He's like, he doesn't know where he is. He's on a plane somewhere. Somebody snuck him a phone. And so, so this is what happened.
I am Amy Goodman from the radio TV program Democracy Now! Around the United States. We would like to know why you left Haiti.
Thank you. First of all, I didn't leave Haiti because I wanted to leave Haiti. They forced me to leave Haiti. It was a kidnapping, which they call coup d'etat, or for some others, nothing else than something which is resignation. For me, it wasn't a resignation. It's a real kidnapping under the cover of coup d'etat.
It was a kidnapping under the cover of coup d'etat?
Yes.
Who forced you out of the country?
I saw U.S. officials through Ambassador Foley, Mr. Moreno, working for the U.S. Embassy in Haiti. I saw American soldiers. I saw foreigner soldiers linked to drug dealers like Guy Philippe, linked to killers already convicted as Chamberlain. They all did their kidnapping using Haitian puppets like Guy Philippe, drug dealers, Chamberlain, already convicted. And basically, this night I didn't see Haitians, I saw Americans.
At the same time, the Western media is reporting that he ran away and he resigned, which was a lie, right? And so you have that. But by the time they took him out, there were already hundreds of troops from Canada and the US and France underground in Haiti. And the US was able to take over, and they had what they called, because they were in the UN Security Council, and this is why we know the UN is not a democratic institution, they're able to pass through the US Security Council a resolution that allowed the US to provide military so-called support, stabilizing mission for Haiti. And they were able then later, by June 1st, to have a what they call a Chapter 7 UN peacekeeping mission to Haiti, where they sent thousands of troops to so-called stabilize the country. But what we need to know is that this was a coup d'etat initiated by France, Canada, and the US that was then condoned through the UN Security Council, but also it basically, the UN then provided the service of basically occupying and controlling Haiti on behalf of the US, right? So this is a new way of occupation, right? And for your listeners, Haiti's been occupied long before, right? Haiti was occupied in 1915, but this was done by Southern racist US soldiers that went in there and massacred people. But this time, the US was able to not include its own troops, was able to use the UN Security Council and the UN to provide military, countries from all over the world provide military support to occupy Haiti. And I have to say the Chapter 7 deployment is important because it's actually linked to today's gang discourse. You know, one of the things that the UN has two different types of deployments for so-called peacekeeping. And the first one is Chapter 6, where it's not necessarily, where you go and you help a government stabilize and you can't use force, right? Well, for Haiti, they said that they needed Chapter 7 deployment, which means that you could use military force and you didn't necessarily need the government's permission, the Haitian government's permission to deploy forces. And
that's what the UN.
That's what the UN Security Council. Remember, the US, France, are in the Security Council, right? And so, so
You're speaking to 2004.
2004.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So you have this occupation force coming to the UN, and what comes out of that is called the core group. And I don't know if people have heard of the core group. So out of this 2004, from June 1st, 2004, you have large scale occupation. And one of the key things is that it was Brazil under Lula, the leftist government, that actually pushed for having his military be in charge of the military wing of the occupation. So Brazil and Chile led this in terms of their military forces. So it was the entire military wing of the occupation was run by Brazilian generals for the entire 17 years they were there. 14 years they were there, right? And then you had a civilian and police force, which were run by the Europeans. So the head of the UN mission were Europeans, or like white men, Europeans, and I think from Chile. And then the head of the military wing was Brazil, the left-wing Brazil government, and all the military people. And so they were there. They've been there. The UN were there through 2004 all the way to 2019. And while you have this occupation, you have the development of what they call the core group. And the core group is basically an unelected, it was convened in 2004 under the authority of the UN Security Council to basically manage the UN peacekeeping, or what we call the occupation force. And it was set up to coordinate these various branches and so on and so forth. And it has members including Canada, Brazil, France, Germany, Spain, the US, representatives from the European Union, and the Organization of American States, as well as the UN. And so the core group basically has worked, has an outsized role in terms of thinking in Haitian politics. They decide what goes on in Haiti. In fact, when the Haitian, the so-called Haitian president from last summer was assassinated, it was the core group that decided who would be the prime minister. This is an unelected group of white people making decisions about Haiti.
So just to kind of back up just to underline this a little bit more, so the core group comes out of the UN.
Yes, okay. It was created out of a resolution that comes right out of the resolution to send the UN peacekeeping mission.
So when you went, you spoke about going all the way back to 2003 and how there was a meeting.
A meeting between France, US, and Canada.
Is that connected to the core group, or is that?
It's the meeting is not connected. The meeting was a separate meeting, but all the members who participated in that meeting are members of the core group.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay,
it's right, and so that's a very good question, because it's in a good point to make. So this is an unelected and unaccountable to the Haitian people, but it is an imperial power, right? Because it makes decisions and it announces its decisions on Haiti and Haitian politics through press releases, right? So you have that. So you have from 2004 through 2019, when the large forces left, you have the core group, you have the UN office in Haiti. So even after the forces left in Haiti, the large scale military force that were there, and their numbers went up to at least, at the largest amount was like 12,000 military officials, in addition to thousands of police and civilian. That was the occupation force, right?
Is this even including like the forces that were sent because of the earthquake?
No, it actually, the numbers swelled because the UN lost a lot of people during the earthquake as well, right? And so then the numbers swelled. And, after the earthquake, the first thing they did was the US sent the Coast Guard to surround Haitian waters to tell Haitians not to run away, not to come to the U.S. Yeah. So the first thing they did was send the military, I think under Obama, they sent, 5,000, is it 5 or 6,000? No, 20,000.
Just for people listening, because I know we're jumping around, that was in 2010.
This is 2010, the massive earthquake that killed, about 200,000 Haitian people. But the first thing that the U.S. did was take over Haiti's space and block it, and then sent thousands of U.S. troops to basically, because they thought these Haitians were going to riot and things were going to go crazy. I mean, they always do that, right? It's like these Negroes cannot control themselves. But I want to step back a little bit, because under this occupation from 2004 onward, because that's what it is, the U.S. basically controlled all politics and all economics in Haiti. They handpicked presidents, and this is where the role of the Organization of American States is significant, because they handpicked presidents, and starting, and at first they weren't that explicit. They would allow the veneer of elections, right? And the couple of people that were elected, like Preval, who was a former Aristide supporter, he was elected, but he was very much controlled by the core group and the U.S. government. But right after the earthquake is when really the U.S. really took over the dismantling of the Haitian state, in the sense that there was, right after the earthquake, you have the emergence of cholera. And I think this is important while we talk about intervention. And cholera came to Haiti for the first time. Haiti had never had cholera. The Caribbean, there was no sign of cholera. until the right at 8 months after the earthquake, I think September or October, people started just dying of this disease and no one knew what it was. But within a few days, they realized it was cholera. By then there were hundreds dead because cholera impacts you.
And cholera what is cholera?
Cholera is a disease that's waterborne, right? So if you drink water that has the disease in it, that has the disease that's infected, then it's and I'm glad you asked this question because it's a terrible disease that what it is, it basically causes all kinds. So you're throwing up, every orifice is rejecting your body. So you're nonstop diarrhea, throw up. And so most people die from dehydration and pain. So, and then, so it's a really devastating and dirty disease, right? And cholera was brought to Haiti by the UN soldiers. And I have to say the UN, and, I was in Haiti when the UN were there. So Haiti was not at civil war. Chapter 7 deployment of the UN is when Haiti's in civil war, when a country's in civil war. Haiti did not have a civil war. It had a coup d'etat where the US removed its president.
Chapter 7 is for
when a country's in civil war. Yeah, the Chapter 7 deployment of the UN.
Okay.
Haiti did not have civil war.
Okay.
It did not. But they used the Chapter 7 in order to use force against the people who were protesting the removal of their president. So most of the soldiers in the first few years, really, they killed thousands of Aristide supporters. There's one thing, I think in 2006, where the soldiers go into a poor neighborhood that's an Aristide stronghold, where in one afternoon, this was led by the Brazilian general, they shot 22,000 bullets into a tiny enclosed neighborhood, killing tons of people, right? And getting away with that, right? And you can go on Twitter, you'll see videos of like UN soldiers shooting point blank at protesters and so on and so forth.
Where did these UN soldiers come from? Like, obviously, it's not just, you talked about Brazil, talked about Canada. So are these UN soldiers, where are they, like, where are these people coming from?
That's a very good important point, because one of the things about the UN is that, if you have a UN mission, you can get soldiers from all over the world. And so before I say that, it's important because there are soldiers from like Nepal. They're the ones that brought cholera, by the way. There are soldiers from Nigeria, Jordan, Yemen, all over the world. Most of the developing world sent soldiers. And so they were part of that UN force. I'm just like, when I was in Haiti, running into Nigerian soldiers just made no sense to me, right? It's like,
so this wasn't just a bunch of white boys.
No. The white boys ran the office. The military were people of color.
Okay.
A lot of white boys from Brazil, because Brazil's military is pretty white, but in Latin America, white is distinct in a particular way, right?
Right.
So you could be, compared to Haitians, a lot of them see themselves as white, even though they might not be seen as white in the West. So, but the reason it's important because the U.S. did not have to send its own soldiers or risk anything, because the way the UN works is that if you have a peacekeeping mission, it provides free salaries, right, for a country. The UN pays your soldiers, it gives them practical training and so on. So people would be happy to send their soldiers to help the UN because people believe in the UN, right? And they believe what the UN says and so on. So if they send their soldiers, the soldiers automatically are getting stipends and so on and so forth. And for Brazil, leading this mission actually helped train their military for them to go back and attack their favelas, right? So most of the people who became military leaders and ended up in Bolsonaro's government, and which is why it's ironic to me, because it was Lula. Lula was Lula pushed so much for the soldiers to run minister, but then these soldiers made their careers in Haiti and then turned against him. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's what you get, right? I mean, that's the reality, right? So they become advisors and leaders in the military, because in the military in Brazil, leaders supporting Bolsonaro, because working in the UN, having a leadership position in the UN gives you legitimacy. So it helped the careers of all these military people. And Lula did it because he was promised, supposedly by George W. Bush, that if he showed leadership in the region, then he might have a seat on the UN Security Council. And so if he did it, this is when the emergence of BRICS wanted Brazil to be this powerhouse. And so they thought by leading this mission on the backs of Haitians, that they can bring up their, their country into the UN Security Council.
Well, going back, I guess, want to get back to the games, but also like, what's the logic of any of this? I mean, like, why are they being invaded? I'm gonna play devil's advocate for the sake of the myth here. Did Haiti need to be invaded? Did it need help? Was it not able to take care of itself? Could they not govern themselves? Like, why would? Because to my knowledge, Aristide was one of the few democratically elected people in the
only democratically elected, right? And so, well, I mean, if you look at the WikiLeaks papers, and that's the beauty about, and it's too bad, not too bad, but no, that's the reason they're persecuting Assange, because if you look at the WikiLeaks papers, what you see is actually the logic of the invasion. One of the key things that you have to know is that Haiti is one of the few places where I think about 60 or 70% of people still own their land compared to the rest of the Caribbean, right? But the U.S. has been, the U.S. has been ruining Haiti's economy for a very long time. And so even Bill Clinton, gave this mea culpa how he killed the rice industry in Haiti for his Arkansas rice producers, right? Under Reagan in 1980, they made the Haitian government kill all the Black pigs in Haiti because they said there was a disease, and so that they insisted that they kill the Black pigs in order to import white pigs from the Midwest to Haiti into an area that they don't, that they're not, used to. So it costs more to grow these white pigs because they're coming from North America and they require a different kind of feeding and so on and so forth, as opposed to the pigs that that originate on the island, right? So there's that. You have the killing of the rice industry, the killing of the of pigs, and then through WikiLeaks, we realized that even under the Obama administration, the U.S. was against the Aristide government because they were trying to raise the minimum wage to $5 a day.
Yep.
So the Obama administration was completely against that. The other thing is, just last week, Brian Nichols, which is the assistant secretary for the hemisphere, Black man, admitted that the reason that they support Ariel Henry, the current prime minister, so-called prime minister of Haiti, is because he went through and did remove the fuel subsidies that the IMF required Haiti to do.
Right.
So he said, we support him because we've been wanting the Haiti to remove fuel subsidies. So this is what the U.S. government is saying. But there's a longer history, right? So Haiti, the U.S. invaded Haiti in 1915, right before, right around the same time, there was another assassination. So they used that as a pretext to go. But the reality is the invasion was because Citibank of New York had started doing business in Haiti. And this is after, you have the Monroe Doctrine, and the U.S. basically gets rid of all the European business and mercantilist interest in the region. So Germany got out of the region, the U.S., France, and so on, because France, before the U.S., it was France that actually owned the banking, the railroads, and all of that stuff in Haiti. Well, Citibank comes in and takes over the National Bank of Haiti. And then they decide that Haiti needed to be invaded so they have more control. So if you read James Weldon Johnson, he did a series in The Nation about why the U.S. occupied Haiti in 1915. And one of them is it's because it's for Citibank to make Haiti open, what they would say open for business for Citibank. And remember, I don't know if people know this, right before the invasion in 1915, the U.S. sent boats and basically brazenly went to the Bank of Haiti and took all the gold, put it on a boat and sent it to New York, right? So they took millions of dollars worth of Haiti's gold, were then taken to New York, they say for safekeeping, right? And so that's, the other part of it was it's always about economics as well as politics, right? One of the things when Haiti became independent in 1804 under Jean-Jacques Dessalines was that in the Haitian Constitution, it said that no white man shall ever own land in Haiti.
Yep.
So the first thing the U.S. government did in 1915 was to change Haiti's constitution, to remove that clause. And FDR, which people love in this country because of the New Deal, but he was a racist, right, as all U.S. presidents are. He bragged that he rewrote the entire document himself, the Haitian Constitution, which opened it up for fleecing, opened the country up for fleecing.
I have a quote I just found. You spoke about the Monroe Doctrine, which we can get into that more, but just want to drop this in. This is something from like 1914, which again, 1915 is when this invasion started that you're talking about. And William McElroy, he was a former governor of West Virginia, and he was talking about Haiti, just like in the geopolitical aspect, that just the geographic location of Haiti is important here as well. So he says, Haiti is directly on and commands the two greatest passages of the Atlantic Ocean into the Caribbean Sea from the eastern coast of the United States to the canal. It thus practically controls the great bulk of commerce of the United States to the east in the Pacific Ocean, which is very important back then, even more so than now, because a lot of stuff is going through sea. It's not as many planes or anything like that. So commerce has to move. That's why coastal cities and ports have always been important to capital. I just want to like note that there's also a geographic like specific location.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I was going to say that, right? It's actually more important now. It's really interesting you say that because so part of the control of Haiti is very important for the U.S. on a number of levels. The first one, and people should know this, the most important part is Haiti is the first Black republic in the world that defeated colonialism, race, and slavery and white supremacy. Right. So Haiti, as Frederick Douglass say, is still paying for that. Mm-hmm. There's this deep anti-Blackness and racism that's towards these Haitians that you can see from 200 years ago. The way they talk about so-called gangs now is the way that they talked about Haitian violence 100 years ago. Right. There's always this thing about these Negroes cannot rule themselves.
And this document, I don't have the direct quote, but when I was reading through it, it had a bunch of references to Haiti being this violent place. And it
was about like they're killing the whites. They killed all the whites. They did this, they did that, right? And so that discourse around Haiti has been around for 200 years, which is why it's so easy to believe, right? And so on. But, you know, the other thing is there's this little island. If you look at your map, there's a little island right to the north on the northwest part. It's connected land. It's not a full island. It's just a little, it's called Mole St. Nicolas. And the U.S. has been trying to get that area for a military base for 200 years. In fact, they sent Frederick Douglass to negotiate with the Haitian government when Frederick Douglass was the representative to Haiti, the U.S. representative to Haiti in late 1800s, to negotiate for that part, that little strip of land in Haiti, because they wanted a U.S. military base there. Haiti kept saying no, which is why the U.S. ended up in Guantanamo Bay. That's why the U.S. has a base in Guantanamo Bay.
I didn't know that.
If you look at the map, Mole St. Nicolas is in between. So that route goes between Cuba and Haiti. There's only, it's not that far. You can see where Guantanamo Bay is at the top, and then you see Mole St. Nicolas, where the boat can come through. And you're right, to get through there, if you have a base there, you can get through. Not only can you control the politics of the region, especially around Venezuela and Cuba and so on, but you can get through the Panama Canal to get to the Pacific. Today, because as the U.S. is preparing war with China, it actually becomes even more important to have this quick route through the Panama Canal to Asia. And so that's important because people always say, well, what do they hate? People don't give they don't care. Sorry, I was about to curse.
No, you can do that all you want.
They don't care about Haiti or anything like that. It's just, but I'm like, if they don't care about Haiti, why is it that they go out of their way to destabilize the country? But also, do you know that the fourth largest U.S. embassy in the world is in Haiti? And so then you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why would a country that means nothing, right, to the rest of the world and to the West have the fourth largest U.S. embassy? Because they plan to be there long, and they want to continue to have this military force there in order to have their way. And so what they realized after 2010 is that they can actually go in and actually impose their own president, right? Because the reason Aristide won in 1990, they thought it was their hand-picked person that was going to win the elections. Aristide surprised them. They had their own, Washington had its own pick, this World Bank, I think this businessman that they wanted. The masses surprised them. And so in 2010, after the earthquake, and so let me just go back quickly. In 2010, right after the earthquake in October, cholera was found, was found in Haiti. It was found because the UN forces, they have bases throughout the country in Haiti. were dumped in the biggest water system in Haiti. There's a UN base right near it, and they were dumping their shit, literal shit, fecal matter, from their toilets into the main water source in Haiti. That's what caused cholera. And just think about the way that these people think about the Haitian population, to dump their shit in the water that everybody uses to eat, to cook with, to wash, to bathe, right? That's how cholera spread in the middle of Haiti from this UN base because of the occupation. And so right after that, with cholera raging, and cholera sickened 1 million people and killed about 30,000. Those numbers are lower than I think they should be. And then the UN refused to accept responsibility. So they denied it for 6 years. And then finally, after 6 years, they said, oh, we're sorry. And then we're going to figure something out. So there's never been reparations. They never fixed the water system and so on and so forth that would stop cholera from happening. And that's why it's ironic and even more of an insult to use cholera than as a pretext, because the resurgence of cholera to use that as a pretext to send more UN soldiers. So there's,
like you said, it was never there before.
Cholera had never been in Haiti. Right. And so you have that. So while you're having all this raging, you have the earthquake, and then you have cholera all within a year. So you think about the suffering of the Haitian people, right? People living in tents and so on. The U.S. then demands that there should be an election. And this is where, so the past 12 years of Haiti has been the complete demise of the Haitian state. So before you can have coup d'etats that you can put in, that's what they did after the 2004 coup d'etat. They put in so-called council of elders, and they put in a prime minister and had elections. But this time, they decided they're going to have elections. And the Haitian people were saying, like, look, there are 1 million people in tents. People don't have addresses. Why are we forcing elections? But they wanted to put in their person because they're also tired of Cueval, who had signed on to what they call the Petro-Caribe funds. It was
What year is this?
This is 2007.
Okay.
Cueval was president, and Petro-Caribe is a fund that Hugo Chavez of Venezuela had set up for the Caribbean nations for development. This is at the time when oil prices were high. Venezuela has all this oil. And I have to say, of all the friends in Haiti, Hugo Chavez was a friend, like for real, right? And so he decided that he would have this deal with the Caribbean where he would provide cheap oil at I think 1% interest, where these countries did not have to pay them back for 25 years. So you would get the oil from Venezuela at a 1% interest, but you wouldn't have to pay them back till 25 years. And then the government would then sell the oil to the people on the market and use the profits that it makes from selling the oil for development. That's how Petro-Caribe worked. The U.S. was completely against that from the very beginning because, of course, it goes against their oil companies, right, that wanted to do business in Haiti and the Caribbean. And they were very angry at Preval for signing on to this. And so they wanted to get rid of him. And they wanted to get rid of Aristide because the WikiLeaks paper says he's against the market-based economy that the U.S. and the West prefer, right? So he was not, they wanted more neoliberal economic policy.
And initially he was, particularly in the 90s, he was casted as some kind of like socialist, communist type of character.
He was. And if you look at even the Vatican papers, right? Like the Vatican was like, he worships voodoo and, he's anti-market based and he's not a real Catholic. He's not a real priest. And, and Aristide is really interesting. I mean, he made a lot of mistakes in terms of sometimes agreeing with some of this neoliberal policies because he didn't have any choice. But he's like, look, all I want was to bring a move from, from devastation to, move up from devastation to poverty, or from poverty to from survival to poverty, just a step up for the Haitian people. And they did not even want that, down to not allowing them to raise the minimum wage. So, but I think one of the key things that got rid of Aristide was in 2003 during the celebration for the beginning of the Haitian Revolution, he stated that France's debt to Haiti was $21 billion and Haiti needed reparations. And so a lot of us think one of the key reasons for ousting him was for him to coming out and saying that this debt needed to be paid. And I don't, for your audience who doesn't know, the indemnity was a debt that after Haiti got independence in 1804, well, took its independence in 1804, no Western nation wanted to trade with it. And, nations need trading, they need diplomatic relationships. It was completely isolated. And the US, for example, did not recognize Haiti till 1865, right when slavery was ending. And Haiti itself, after independence, got into a civil war between the North and the South, where the South were the mulatto elite. The northern part was mostly Black. And so, for people who want to know, there's, the mulattoes and Blacks came together to fight against the Europeans, but at the end, the country was split. And so once Jean-Jacques Dessalines was assassinated, the leader of the revolution, it was through treachery. Haiti was run by the Southerners, the light-skinned elite, and they really wanted French recognition. And so the French. So after the revolution, there was what they call gunboat diplomacy. The French always threatened to come back and send their boats, military boats. The French, the British, the U.S. always threatening Haiti. And, this was like a war, a devastating war. And, people were tired. They didn't have what it took to fight back. And so so the French said the only ways they would recognize Haiti was as if they paid reparations to the white planters that lost their property, including Africans. So Africans had to pay for their
and the Africans were part of the property. Yeah. Right.
So they had to pay for their own freedom to France. And that bill was not finished paying till the mid 1900s, 1947. So from early 1800s to 1947, Haitians have been paying back this indemnity.
And U.S. banks were in on that.
U.S. banks and France. So all the cool stuff, including the Eiffel Tower, were built off of the indemnity that Haitians were paying. And when Haitians could not afford to pay it, they got loans from the U.S. banks to continue paying France. And so when Aristide in 2003 demanded that France pay that back, I think it scared everyone. And I think that really accelerated. They didn't like his policies, but this really accelerated the push to move him out. And so in 2010, fast forward 2010, you have then after cholera and so on, the U.S. is forcing these elections. The first thing they do is bring in the Organization of American States. And this is why all these Western so-called global international organizations are all imperialist organizations. The Organization of American States, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, they're all set up to uphold Western supremacy.
Right.
So the Organization of American States say they would organize these elections. One of the things that they did was remove Lavalas, which is the largest political party in Haiti, from running. So they banned the party from running a candidate. The U.S. then, so there were 3 candidates running. And this is like, so what happens is you have Michel Martelly, which was like a neo-Duvalierist. Duvalier was the dictator of Haiti for 30 years up until 1986. You have Michel Martelly, you have this woman named Milan Manigat, and then this other guy named Jean Celestin. And so the U.S. wanted Martelly. And so what did they do? The first round goes through. Martelly was not a U.S. citizen. And people will say, he was not a Haitian citizen. People will say that he had moved to the U.S. He was bankrupt. He was living in the U.S. and did not have a Haitian passport. And his Haitian passport shows up a few days before the elections, right? So, and not only that if you look at the WikiLeaks papers, there's a PR company that was hired to basically clean him up, right? So the first round of the elections.
And this is what year again? Just make sure.
This is 2010.
Okay.
Fall of 2010, right?
And so this is post-earthquake?
This is post-earthquake, post-cholera, while cholera is raging. While people are saying we cannot have elections because there are 1 million people who don't have housing and so on, right? So the U.S. forces the elections, they pay for them. They spend, and I write about this. I wrote about this back in 2011 about this, what we call the selection. Because what happens is the U.S. paid, I think, either it was $38 million for these elections to come. The OAS comes in. So you remove the majority party from the country. So you have very few people voting. And the first round of the elections, I think it was under 20% people who voted. Martelly did not make the first round. So the first round of the elections come, he does not make the first round. Hillary Clinton and this is during the so-called Arab Spring, which I call the African Spring, but this is when like protests are happening in like northern parts of Africa, right? Tunisia, Libya, which would lead to the demise of Gaddafi, right? So Hillary Clinton flies from the Middle East, flies to Haiti, and demand that they change the order of the election, change the election results.
And she's Secretary of State.
She's Secretary of State for Obama.
Yeah.
So she flies in there, and then there's one guy who's in there who's written about this. They threatened the sitting president, who's René Préval, and in a meeting, and this you can find this in the WikiLeaks papers, and people have written exposés. There's a meeting that's happening with the core group, the UN representatives, the OAS, and then they're saying that they told Préval that if he doesn't agree with the change in the ballot, that there's a plane waiting for him to take him out. This is
Hillary Clinton's.
This is Hillary Clinton, and this is Kenneth Merton. This is the U.S. ambassador to Haiti. So they're threatening this, and then so the guy who reports, he's Brazilian. He's just like, this is crazy, and so they said, well, we already told Préval that this is going to happen. So if he doesn't, we'll put him on a plane. And they said, well, how did Préval respond? Préval said, well, I'm not Aristide, I'm Allende. Remember Chile, the coup d'etat that happened in 1973, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that, right? So they basically they removed the person that came in second place and put Martelly in there against the wishes of the people.
And
Meanwhile,
this dude wasn't even in Haiti. Right?
He wasn't in Haiti.
Yeah.
He was, he was going bankrupt in his house, and now he's a multimillionaire, right? So that's a whole other conversation. But so they forced him, and so he basically won with 18% of the votes when the majority of people didn't vote. But also he made the second round, and that's with the collusion of the Organization of American States, which is supposed to be a neutral organization. But also, so Hillary Clinton handpicked our president. Right, this neo-Duvalierist, and the first thing he does.
This was in the WikiLeaks, because I remember that story.
This is in the WikiLeaks. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, in the WikiLeaks papers. And so the second round happens in 2011. They handpick him, and so he becomes this. And immediately, and this is like when all this money, the billions of dollars that were raised over the after the earthquake for Haiti, which was stolen by the Red Cross and all these people. Were part of this.
That up too, yeah. The Red
right.
Cross is
and Martelly, right, and Martelly's part of the Haitian elite, right. And I have to say, there's a really crazy problem in Haiti that we have in the Caribbean, but people don't talk about it as much. Is that there's a very small, light-skinned white elite in Haiti. These major families that run everything, that own everything, and that make decisions. And so they're the ones that when all the so-called, when Obama put Bill Clinton, who's a vampire because he sucks everybody dry, takes everybody's money, put Bill Clinton and George W. Bush in charge of reconstruction funds for Haiti, they only dealt with these families that own, and this is the tie to gangs, because these families own the ports. They own all the private ports around Haiti. They own the businesses. And up until the earthquake, they made a big come up after the earthquake because, a lot of them were land rich and cash poor. And so when all the money was coming in, what happens? It goes right through them, through their businesses, through their ports, and so on and so forth. And Martelly is part of that group. So Martelly's tenure was really horrible, right? I mean, this was when Duvalier came back into the country, right? And so there's pictures of Martelly, Duvalier, and Bill Clinton. This is like the dictator of Haiti, right? So you have them there, and he's like, Haiti's open for business. So basically, through him, the reconstruction for Haiti was basically construction for the elite classes, right? So what did Bill Clinton do to Haiti? They built a Holiday Inn hotel, right? And like some factory in the north that they sold to a South Korean faculty for free, South factory for free trade, whatever. So where you basically use labor, that cheap labor of Haitians to do factory work. So Martelly comes in, and under him, he doesn't run legislative elections. So we start losing our legislators, but he has the U.S. support, so he doesn't do any of that. And he's ruling by decree at this thing. So, Haiti is a country that had thousands of elected officials. We're down to like 8 elected officials. And And so through Martelly, no elections, no legislative elections, and so on and so forth. And then what happens is he handpicks, he had to go after a while, there's so many protests against him. He handpicks Jovenel Moïse, same party, right? Who had even fewer votes than Martelly, who the Organization of American States actually, allowed ballot stuffing and so on and so forth. That's also very open out there. So he was handpicked, and people protested him from the very beginning because they're like, these were not fair elections. And through him, you lose the rest of the Senate, the legislature, the local judges, all of those we lose, because then Jovenel Moïse refuses to step down when his 5 years are up, which led to a whole bunch of protests in 2020. But there were protests against him in 2018, 2019, because the PetroCaribe funds from the PetroCaribe program that Venezuela had, right, they embezzled it. So they stole like $2 billion. That's Martelly and that party from there. So people were protesting that money. They're protesting the fact that these were like, undemocratic governments. But what the U.S. has done is basically they doubled down. So they're supporting. They supported that. And so the assassination of Jovenel Moïse last summer, we think it's an infighting between the elites, but the U.S. supported it. And the U.S. knows till this day there's no, there's no report, but it's the U.S. that went in, for example. First of all, a lot of, if you see the videos like DEA, so it's like U.S. drug police were raiding Haiti. That's what they called. But it's the U.S. that went in to see, the FBI, U.S. FBI went and took all the evidence and brought it back to the U.S. So everybody knows that the U.S. has the evidence. They know who did it. We know it was like the Colombians, but they were hired by a company. All the people who are responsible live in Miami, right? And we know the companies, but the U.S. won't follow that because they're implicated. The other thing is,
this was a beef between the elites. I was listening to Guerrilla History podcast and Pascal Robert was on there, and he was saying how, you speak on this yourself, but he said Moïse was giving you're supposed to give the contract deals to build things, right, to develop on the island to the local elite, and he was going to foreign people to do that. And there he was saying some people believe that was part of it. It was he overreached. He overreached, but also he started talking back, right? Because, they handpicked them. Michel Martelly and the bosses picked them because they thought, and there's also color dynamic, right? So they thought, he's like this dumb, dark-skinned person that could be used, because in Haiti, it matters if you're dark-skinned and a president, right? Because you don't want, because the majority of people look like me, right? And so, and because there's such a long history of like colorism and the elite being white, Levantine, the five families are like, they're, Biggio, who's like the billionaire in the Caribbean who lives in Florida. He's a Zionist, right? He's Israeli. And people think, he does all kinds of crazy stuff. But you have the Mevs family, you have the Brent family, you have the Vold family. So these are like white, light-skinned, and Syrian, white, Italian people that run Haiti. These are the families that run Haiti. The five families, like a godfather.
They're about 5 to 13 of them. We have an article in Black Agenda Report that talks about these families. Because the only way to solve the crisis in Haiti is to diminish the power of these foreign. They call themselves Haitian, but they're not. They have dual passports, right? So you have Martelly come in. So Jovenel Moïse was assassinated because we think in that ruling party that the U.S. installed from 2010, there's a split between the two groups. And Moïse, I think, went beyond what he was supposed to, because the whole point was for him to hold the spot for Martelly to come back, because Haiti only allows one term. So you can run the term, you can get off and then come back, but you can't do consecutive terms as president because of the long history of coup d'etats, right? Or dictatorships. Right. And so so Jovenel Moïse is killed. The other thing is, this Ariel Henry was chosen by the core group in the US. So at first, he was an interim. The reason he's not legitimate, Moïse was going through all kinds of trouble. There's so many protests against him. People wanted him out. He overstayed his welcome. His term was over February 2021. He refused to step down. And so then people were protesting. And then then what he tried to do was reshuffle his cabinet, whatever was left of it, and appointed another prime minister. The prime minister position in Haiti is an appointed one, is not an elected one. So the president appoints the prime minister.
Right, that's important. I don't think a lot of people know there's a president and a prime minister.
Prime minister, Right. And so that's very important. And so it's not like Jamaica where they're, their leader's still the King of England, but that's a whole other conversation. But so you have a president and prime minister. So Moise had a prime minister, Claude Joseph, and then he had just appointed Ariel Henry, who was supposed to be sworn in the day he was assassinated. So the core group announces Claude Joseph is the new prime minister. Right. This core group decides this, right? They send a tweet, but then that same day, the next day, Biden sends a high-level delegation to Haiti, and they switch their position, and they decide Ariel Henry, the core group, yeah, okay. Ariel Henry, who was not, who had not been chosen yet, they decided he should be prime minister.
And then what year are we in now? We're in 2000.
This is 2021. This is last summer after the assassination. This is July. This is July. So this is like when we had Black Alliance for Peace release a statement like, who rules Haiti? Like, who decides? So then they decided that Ariel Henry would be the leader of Haiti. Now, mind you, Ariel Henry is implicated in the assassination of Jovenel Moise. Right. And so there's all kinds of, information around, the fact that he was on the phone with the killer for 6 minutes right after the assassination. So there's evidence out there that he's implicated. So Haitian people know this, right? But the U.S. holds on to him because he does everything they need, right? And so that's really where we are in Haiti. We're under occupation by the core group. We have an illegitimate installed prime minister that was not voted, that has no mandate. And this is the illegitimate government that's calling for an armed force to Haiti. That's the problem that that's one of the key things. In addition to not wanting a foreign invasion, because what foreign invasion has meant to Haiti in 1915, it meant the killings of thousands of people, the forced labor. That's when the U.S. actually first used aerial bombardment. And that was in the countryside in Haiti in the early 1900s, 1919, 1918. And then now under this occupation, you have cholera. You have a lot of murders. The other thing you have is rapes. So the UN soldiers raped so many kids, like 11-year-old girls, so much so that the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti had to sue the UN so that these guys can take paternity over the hundreds and thousands of children that were left behind from rape. So, and that people can look that up, like, suing UN soldiers for the children they left behind, right? So the foreign occupation has been devastating for Haitians, for Haitian people in so many ways, right? Murder, but also lack of, the lack of sovereignty, the complete denial of Haitian sovereignty to this foreign military occupation.
All right, that's it for the first half of the discussion. I think that Jemima lays it out pretty well, how there's been a history of intervention and invasion from foreign powers. So why continue that? I think that's clear. When you hear things like gangs and violence and turmoil, as it was kind of set up in the beginning, even if those things are true or happening, those things are used often as fronts, as we've talked about with the laundering piece, but they're used as a reason for intervention, a reason to invade, because these people cannot take care of themselves. So something needs to happen to help them. But that is often not the motivation at the heart of why the U.S. is going into another country, as was laid out. So when you hear those things, that's always a precursor of something else. We're seeing this in other places, even when these stories are false. Like just a few days ago, there was a story about Iran that they had, it's not even believable, but that they had agreed to execute 15,000 people. And this went viral and celebrities shared it. And, this was tied to the current protests that are occurring in Iran. And then it was proven that this wasn't true. There was another story where Russia supposedly had shot a missile into Poland and hit NATO territory, and that was going to pop off World War III. And the next thing you know, but not even within 24 hours, we find out that Ukraine actually shot that missile. So again, using these other examples to say that when you hear reports about this one thing or this main problem, it's often not what they say it is. So we'll talk about the gangs more so in part 2, and we're not saying that gangs, if that's what you want to call them, or that there isn't other entities in Haiti that may not be causing peace or bringing peace, but those things will appeal to a certain sense of care or something, but that's usually not what this is about. So I think Dr. Pierre laid that out pretty clearly. So tune in for part 2. Again, if you are interested, you can always get this interview in its full part. If you don't want to wait for a week, you can get it in its full part on our Patreon. But either way, we'll see y'all next week. Peace out.
Okay. Fresh out the plane in a whole nother state. I'm trying to eat down a whole nother plate. Seem like my homies was stuck in the hood. I just told them